Well, welcome to Freedom Church International. It's good to see you here today, and welcome to the Fairhope campus of Freedom Church. We are one church in 6 locations on 2 continents, and God is at work in all of those places, and we celebrate what He is doing. We are in this series that we've been in for a couple of months now that we'll still be in for a few more weeks, that is entitled Rhythms of Life, and I hope that this isn't just something that we're mentally rehearsing, but that these are practices that we're building into our lives. And I am excited about what I'm sharing with you today. I was reflecting on today's message as I was driving in, and it occurred to me that there's a little analogy that I think fits what today's message is really like and what it's about. Can you imagine, if you will, what it would be like if after church, if we could all go out to eat together at a restaurant that's got all of our favorite foods? I mean, the stuff that if you didn't have to worry about dieting, if you didn't have to worry about the scales and how clothes fit, that you could just have a good old time. Just tie it on, just go eat until you're miserable kind of experience. And imagine if in this restaurant, you were not just allowed, but you were required to get an appetizer with your meal and 2 desserts at the end as a minimum. But here's the bonus. At this restaurant, the more you eat, the healthier you'll be. The more you eat, the slimmer and stronger and healthier you'll be. And you're like, well, this is just total nonsense. That's the opposite of real life. And we know it doesn't work that way in terms of diet and nutrition. But isn't it sad how that kind of mindset, the way that we think about health, diet, and nutrition, gets sort of translated over to the ways that we think about spiritual health? I mean, we know in terms of like physical health and diet, that the basic rule of thumb is if you like it, it's not good for you, right? If you enjoy eating it, you don't need to eat it. And if it tastes bad, then it's bound to be good for you. I mean, it just feels like that in that world. And yet, I think at some level, we sort of inherit this mindset that spiritually it sort of works the same way. Whatever you really like, it's probably not good for you. Whatever your heart really longs for, yeah, God probably doesn't want that for you. You need to cut all of that out. All that fun stuff's got to go. Spiritual people are just go to church, pray 27 hours a day, no fun stuff, just think heavy thoughts, think about just church and read your Bible all the time, and just cut out all that's fun and good. Today's message is about the spiritual reality that the restaurant that I described in the spiritual realm is how God designed life. God wants you to be healthier and happier in ways that really do blow our minds. That God wants us to experience the things that bring us great joy. And that's really what today is all about. So I don't know what you came in expecting today, but I've got nothing but good news for you. So if you're expecting to get your toes stepped on today, I'm going to disappoint you because I've got nothing but good news for you today. Who could use some good news? All right. Well, you're going to love today. We're going to start with Isaiah 58. I realize most people don't spend a lot of time in the prophets in their quiet times. Isaiah is a long book, but chapters 40 through 66 are the good news of Isaiah. Chapter 58 is some of that, where the Lord speaking says this: if you keep your feet from breaking the Sabbath and from doing as you please on my holy day, if you call the Sabbath a delight and the Lord's holy day honorable, and if you honor it by not going your own way and not doing as you please or speaking idle words, then, and now this is the real pivot, then you will find your joy in the Lord. And I will cause you to ride in triumph on the heights of the land. I want you to focus for a moment on those last 2 little phrases. You will find your joy, and you'll find it in the Lord. And I'll cause you to ride in triumph on the heights of the land. It is a picture of joy fulfillment, victory, and celebration. All of that. Don't you want those things? I mean, don't you want to live a life that is characterized by those words? I want to live with joy. I want to live in victory. I want my life to be a celebration. I think that's part of what surprises us when we discover the real God of Scriptures, that He is the author of the 365-day-a-year party. He called it the year of Jubilee. It was literally a year-long celebration. He's the God who authored that. He wants us to live in victory and celebration, and He spells out a real key in what it takes to get there in the opening lines of these two verses. How do you get that? In the most peculiar and surprising of ways. We've got to keep your feet from breaking the Sabbath and just doing as you please on this special day. If you call the Sabbath a delight and the Lord's holy day honorable, and if you honor it by not going your own way and not doing as you please. So I've had some different people ask me this week, so what are you preaching on Sunday? And it's been sort of humorous to watch when I just answer in one line and go, I'm going to be preaching on Sabbath Sunday. Nobody has smiled and gone, oh, cool, I look forward to that. Nobody has. And yet this is going to be one of the best news messages that you'll hear all year long, because what you're going to hear today probably surprises us as to what God really does want us to experience. The reason I'm excited about sharing this with you today is because I know that the truth is some of you in this room and some of you who are watching and listening online are actually going to make an adjustment and give what we're talking about today a try. And when you do, you're going to be hooked for life, and you'll never go back, because you're going to find something that is so life-giving, something that is so good that you're going to go, why have I not been doing this my entire life? When you discover the joy of living life the way that God intended for us to live it. And it starts with this principle of Sabbath. What is Sabbath? Well, if you want to pull out your outlines and follow along, we'll start by saying that Sabbath, just to understand the initial concept, comes from the Hebrew word Shabbath, which just means rest. So everywhere you see the word Sabbath in your mind, just translate it as rest. That God is calling you to, if you want to live with joy and victory and celebration, it starts by observing and entering into the Lord's rest, not missing His rest. So I'm curious, this is the audience participation part of the deal today. So I want you to tell me honestly, just when you hear the word Sabbath, coming into the day, if you hear the word Sabbath, what comes to mind? What do you think of when you hear Sabbath? Anybody? Okay, maybe one at a time. Somebody on this side.
No work.
No work. All right. Somebody here. Sleep in. Somebody else. Set apart. Reverence. Saturday. Rest. Church. Rules. What was that? Peace. Anybody else? Fried chicken. All right. I like that plan. The Baptist bird. A lot of different things come to mind for us when we hear the word Sabbath, depending on your background. But of this you can be sure, that Sabbath is actually one of the most gracious gifts of our loving God. Of all the things that God has given to us, this is one of the sweetest and best things that He gives to us. But that may not be at all your sense of what it's about or what comes to mind when you think of Sabbath, because I can't think of many things that God has ever called us to that we've ever gotten more wrong than we have the idea of Sabbath. Like, I can't think of many biblical concepts that have been twisted into everything but what they were supposed to be, more so than what was done with Sabbath. And when you think back to the life of the Lord Jesus, without question, there was nothing that He was taken to task on, that He was persecuted for, more than not getting the Sabbath right. I mean, like, you have a hard time reading 2 pages of the Gospels without running into Jesus being attacked because He didn't do the Sabbath right. I mean, that's all that the Jewish leaders could talk about with Jesus. He breaks the Sabbath. He doesn't keep the Sabbath. Why won't He do the right rules on the Sabbath? Now, the Jews, let me tell you, the Jews are serious about Sabbath. They're so serious about it that they ruined it, basically. They experienced the good things of it, but then they added so much to it that they sucked all the joy out of it because they made so many rules. I mean, to this day, the Jewish people make such a big deal about the Sabbath. I mean, like if you go to Israel today, some of you have traveled there, I've traveled there. Have you ever experienced a Sabbath elevator on the Sabbath? The buttons don't work. Literally, that makes it a Sabbath elevator. You just have to walk in and stand there until it just lands on the right floor, and then you get off. You can't send it to a particular floor. It just sort of randomly goes along until it hits the right floor. Do you know why? Because this would be work. So they turn off the buttons on Sabbath to make sure you don't have to do the work of this. Can you say, missed the point? Jesus was so persecuted for not doing the Sabbath right. And in Mark 2:27, he just summed up his perspective on that when he said to the leaders who were giving him a hard time, the Sabbath was made to meet the needs of people and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath. And that's so very true. So whatever sense you may have of like Sabbath being about something heavy and burdensome, let that go. Hear the words of Jesus. Sabbath was made for you because, oh, you need it. It's made to meet your needs, not to make your life harder. We can say that in Sabbath, we take our hands off the plow and we let God and the earth take care of what's needed. Now, I want to say this as maybe a fuller explanation or a disclaimer on the front end. There are a variety of different expressions of Sabbath or sort of levels of application of Sabbath that are worthy of consideration. And I'm just for a moment going to mention some others, but I'm going to spend the rest of the day pressing into just one specific one. We're going to talk today about how to observe the Sabbath day. And that is a centerpiece for us, but I want you to be very clear that Sabbath is a much bigger reality than just a day of the week. So hear that clearly, even though we're going to focus in on the Sabbath day today. But Sabbath was way more than a day. Sabbath was a way of life. The Jewish people, under God's instruction, weren't just supposed to observe it as one day of the week, though that was a central part of Sabbath observance. But they were also supposed to observe a Sabbath year, 1 year out of every 7. They were supposed to refrain from all work. And the Lord said, you'll just live off of what the land produces. You're not even going to have to plow it. He said, you won't even have to plant seeds in that year. The land will produce, and you can eat the bounty of the land, and you'll have plenty without having to work on that 7th year. In fact, he said every 7 cycles of 7 years, you'll not only observe the Sabbath year and take a full year off, but after that 7th cycle of that, you'll take a bonus year. The 50th year will be the year of Jubilee, and you'll celebrate that entire year, and you won't do any work. You're just going to enjoy the Lord and the people around you and the good things that God has provided for you. You'll take 2 straight years off. Can you imagine? Not just these Sabbath years, but in the course of each year, the Lord prescribed not just one day each week, but there were a bunch of different days prescribed in the course of the year on top of that where you still observe the principle of Sabbath. Some of them would be single days. Other times you would observe an entire week. Normally those would be 8-day celebrations. You're not going to work at all during those times. Oftentimes feasts were prescribed during these seasons of celebration. All of those were Sabbath experiences. You didn't work. You enjoyed the good things of life, and God prescribed every single one of these. None of these were distortions where people built off of God's principle. No, all of these were specific instructions from God. And I know we may say, yeah, but we're not Old Testament. We don't have to follow those rules. That's exactly right. We don't. But we always should pause to consider, what are the principles? What are the core truths that carry over that we're supposed to learn from those very specific instructions that God gave in the Old Testament? And there are some very transferable ones from that. The concept of Sabbath is still for us, and that is very clear in the New Testament. The writer of Hebrews says so clearly, there is still a Sabbath rest for the people of God, and that we should strive to enter into that we should make every effort to observe Sabbath, because God wants us to enjoy all of the good things that come from this lifestyle of Sabbath. So let's press into more of what that looks like. So we can say that Sabbath keeping is about ordering our lives around a pattern of working for 6 days and resting on the Sabbath, on the seventh. That's the central piece in that. In the Ten Commandments in Exodus 20, the Lord says, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all of your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work. So it's a very, very, very simple concept that God says 6 days of the week, you can do as much work as you want to, as much work as you need to, but every single week of your life, 1 day out of 7, completely refrain from all forms of work. He doesn't just say refrain from the work that makes you money, refrain from all work. Now don't miss the point. The point isn't about the work. The point is about what you get to now enjoy in place of the work. This is why God is calling this time out. And I know some of us at this point are probably going, does this really matter? Is this really a big deal? And I want you to just pause for a second and to consider with me just how big of a deal this is to God. I'll give you just 2 or 3 examples of why what we're talking about today is so central to how we're supposed to live our lives. First of all, in the very beginning, someone has rightly said, you want to understand the Bible very well, get clear on the first 3 chapters and the last 3 chapters. If you can get those 6 chapters straight, everything else in between is going to make a lot more sense. These are really critical pieces, the beginning and the end of the story. The very, very beginning of the story is creation. Genesis 1 and 2 is creation. Genesis 1 gives us the 7-day account of creation. When do humans get made? We are the last thing made in all of creation, made in the image of God. The crowning work of creation, we come on what? Day 6. What a trick question. Day 6. The last day of the creative work. And then what does God do on day 7? God rested, not because he was exhausted. God is establishing a pattern for us that on the 7th day God rested. So what's the first day of full day of life for humanity? Day 7. What's the first thing that humanity is invited to do? Rest. Work doesn't come until later on. The first thing when man arrives on the scene that God invites humanity to do is enter into this rest. That doesn't mean that they spent the 7th day taking a long, long nap. What did they do? They experienced the good things and God, rather than saying busy, 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 work, work, work. It wasn't like God said, all right, Adam, I've made you, and there's a big world to take care of. Get busy. There's a lot to do. Get out there after. Some of us grew up in homes where we think that was probably God's first instruction. Was, come on, the sun is up. You're wasting daylight. No. The first day, come and enter into my rest. Come spend time with me. That's the beginning of the story. When we get to Exodus, the very, very first specific instructions that God gives, that's the beginning of the law, it's still what we hold on to as the core of the law, where God is now beginning to spell out specific instructions for how we're supposed to live our lives. And we all know the first 10 instructions that God gave, what do we call those? The 10 Commandments. And we still honor those. These are not the crowning capstone of what it means to live as the ideal Christian. No, the 10 Commandments are the foundation of the whole thing. This is the baseline of what it means to live as a human made in the image of God. This is not like complex Christianity, right? This is don't kill each other. That's not like super spiritual, is it? That's just like, okay, don't kill each other. Don't lie to each other. Don't have sex with each other's spouses. This is foundational stuff about what it means to be human. He gave 10 instructions. The first 3 were instructions about being rightly related to God. Don't have any other gods before you. Don't make any idols. Don't take the name of the Lord your God in vain. First 3 instructions start where we should start. It's about being rightly related to God. The last 6 instructions are going to be about how we relate to one another. In fact, the last 7 instructions are going to be about really, once you establish a relationship with God, how do you now live your life in the world? And of those 7 instructions, the number 1 instruction, the one that precedes all 6 instructions about how you're going to interact with other people, is what? You be sure and take the Lord's rest. You make sure that every week of your life you enter into this time of rest from the Lord. Let that sink in for a minute. Okay, for all of humanity, you get to give 10 instructions that are going to define life. And after you give instruction about being rightly related to God, the first instruction about how you do life, think about all the things that we need to know. And God's going to start with, you make sure you get your rest. You make sure that every week you take an entire day of rest. Okay, is there anybody in the room besides me that's a little bit surprised that that is God's starting point? Come on. You know that's shocking, particularly for us in the Western world that's about work, 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 do, more, more, more. Why would God put that as the first instruction ahead of everything else that he says about how we relate to one another? I'll tell you part of the why. Because he knows we're going to screw up everything else that he's saying. We're not going to do well at any of this other stuff if we're stretched too thin, if we're exhausted. You have no hope of living in healthy relationships with God or with other people if you're focused all the time on doing more and on work. And he says, as a beginning point, you've got to enter into this rest. Now, Sabbath may sound like an unrealistic luxury for the weak. Let's be honest. I mean, we're all Western-minded people. We're all American Christians brought up in a culture that's about work more. And so it's easy for this to sound like, I know, some people probably need that. Some of you probably needed that sermon. You weaklings. You who need that rest. It's tempting to think that way. But I'll tell you a little secret. If you'll give it a try, the Sabbath will capture you. It'll grab your heart and it won't let go. Because you get a taste of it and you're going to want more. It's a little bit like crack. You're going to want a second dose of it. So I've been told. Imagine this with me. You wake up, and as you think about the day ahead of you, first of all, you wake up not to an alarm. You just wake up rested because you got all the sleep you wanted. And as you think about your day ahead, everything that you think of doing today, it's only the things that delight you. There isn't a single ought out there. In fact, you won't even let yourself consider any of the oughts, the things that need to be done around the house, the bills that need to be paid. And all of that is off limits for your mind that day. Everything that's potentially on the agenda, it's just the things that bring you delight. You begin to get a taste of Sabbath, and you'll begin to start thinking about taking slow, leisurely walks or bike rides. You'll start thinking about having conversation that's not rushed with the person or the people that you enjoy the most. You'll start thinking about what kind of good food can I eat today. You'll start thinking about just going out on your porch or your deck, or this time of year sitting in your den, on your couch or in your recliner, and just cranking that thermostat down as low as you want to, and just sitting there and enjoying the good things around you without worrying for a minute about anything that needs to be done. And the thing that will make it all so much more delicious is the realization that I'm doing this because it's what God desires and He's pleased. And what really feels amazing is when you feel yourself after lunch getting a little bit sleepy, you go, you know what I really should do? I ought to take a nap. It's the one day of the week that shoulds and oughts feel so good because what I should do is what I want to do. What I ought to do is get some more rest. And every should and ought just feels so good because God's the one telling you the shoulds and the oughts. And every should and ought goes right to your heart, to the things that your heart wants to do today. And I want to tell you, you get a taste of living like that, oh, it'll spoil you in a heartbeat. And there are some of us right now who are going, that sounds so good, it has to be sin. I mean, like somehow the preacher has to have gotten off course here. This can't be Christianity. Oh, it is. This is Christianity 101. All week long, your heart will strain toward Sabbath when you get a taste of this. And you'll find yourself adopting a mindset that says, I can press through this. I can get through the hard stuff today and tomorrow because I know Sabbath is just a couple of days away. And you'll find yourself having experienced real biblical Sabbath, coming out of it going, you know what? I can face the hard stuff tomorrow. I'm not intimidated by Monday because I'm going into Monday really rested and my tank is refilled. I am recharged and I can handle with God's help what is ahead because He refilled me today with what I really needed. Sabbath won't be a duty. Sabbath will become the centerpiece of every week and the central piece of all of your spiritual disciplines. Now that's a joy. For Jewish people, Sabbath, this is maybe hard for us to relate to, but Sabbath became a sanctuary in a time when there was no physical sanctuary for them. I mean, has there ever been a people in the history of the world who have been more used and abused than the descendants of Abraham and Sarah? I mean, to this day, they have struggled to ever find rest in life. They have struggled to ever find sanctuary. And so for them, in every generation, Sabbath became for them a place in time where they experienced rest and peace and sanctuary, even if life was chaotic and oppressive. It gave them sanity in a world that was so insane for them. And they would, every week, they would really prepare themselves for Sabbath, which it's worth noting that what we're talking about today, it will never happen accidentally in your life. Now, you'll get to a place where it's second nature and you don't even really have to think hard about it because you have become so accustomed to orienting your life this way. But I'm saying on the front end, initially, you're going to have to be very intentional about Sabbath. You're going to have to prepare for it because let's be clear what we are and are not saying here. We're not saying for 6 days do your job and then on the Sabbath go to church and then go home and do all of your catching up on your chores and your meal prepping and all this other stuff to get you ready for the week and paying the bills and doing all the chores around the house. What we're saying is you work whatever you have to work. If you have a career earning kind of job, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, whatever you have to do to take care of that job. And then on top of that, you take the time, if it means taking a day, a sixth day, to take care of the chores and stuff, but you make it so that there is a day that is protected, that you're not having to worry about the yard or the bills or the roof or the whatever else or the sports activities of chasing your kids all over the world. There's going to be some discipline and some hard decisions and some countercultural calls that are going to have to be made, especially if you're still raising kids, in order for there to be an opportunity for Sabbath. And I want to promise you this, if you're raising kids or helping to raise grandkids, nieces and nephews, you will never regret down the line looking back and saying, we made some hard calls. We set some boundaries and said, you know what? If that means that we can't have a day of the week to be a family, to enjoy downtime, to be connected to a church family, then we don't need that extracurricular activity. We don't need that sport. We're not but creating a more well-rounded life by participating in that. What we're doing is we're sucking the joy out of life by doing that. It takes intentionality. We've actually got some friends who are very serious about observing the Sabbath, and they you got to find your own pattern for it. They do it in a little bit more, though they're not Jewish, they do it in a little bit more of a Jewish fashion in that they follow the pattern of Sabbath beginning at sundown. You know, the Jews celebrated Sabbath from sundown on Friday until sundown on Saturday. The Jewish mindset that every day begins with evening and then morning, and the day marks the day. And so our friends literally will begin with the blowing of the shofar at sunset. Like two things mark the beginning of Sabbath: blowing the shofar and having the weekly cocktail. Marks the beginning. That's not a punchline to a joke. That's how they started. Everybody do your own thing. That's their thing, is blow the shofar and have the drink of the week. And I'm like, whatever works for you. But the point is that marks the beginning of 24 hours of enjoying life and enjoying each other and refraining from work. And I just think, hey, I'm not going to go out and buy a ram's horn, but I'm like, kudos to you that you're that intentional to go, it has begun. And until 24 hours has passed, we're not going to do the other stuff. We're going to do the life-giving things. A Jewish writer, in describing Sabbath from a Jewish perspective, said this: Shabbat, which is how they refer to Sabbath, Shabbat is like nothing else. Time as we know it does not exist for these 24 hours, and the worries of the week fall away. A feeling of joy appears. The smallest object, a leaf or a spoon, shimmers in a soft light, and the heart opens. Shabbat is a meditation of unbelievable beauty. It's really worth seeing it from a Jewish perspective because they've been at it for a long time. It's the day that they look forward to all week long, the day that they really enjoy life and the people around them and the God who made them. Now, Christians do not observe Saturday as the Sabbath. Christians in the first century shifted the day that was observed to Sunday, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. It was because Sunday was the day of the resurrection, and so as Christians, the early believers said, we'll celebrate Jesus' resurrection every week. We'll make that our Sabbath. That's totally cool. That's a good idea. The thing to not get hung up on is, well, which day of the week was supposed to be the seventh day? That's missing the point. The point is it's supposed to be one out of every seven, whichever one works for you. Christians have historically observed Sunday as that day. That's good, but there are a couple of problems. Not problems with choosing Sunday, just problems with what has happened to the Christian observance of Sabbath on Sunday. First of all, Christians seem to hardly ever think of resurrection, celebrating Jesus' resurrection on Sunday. That's unfortunate. But secondly, most Christians have lost any sense of what the Sabbath was really designed to be. Sunday just becomes another busy day. Well, we got to get up and go to church for starters, and then we've got to do all of these things on Sunday afternoon, and half of them may be Christian meetings or all kinds of other commitments. It's just another day to get all this stuff done so that we're ready to start the week. And whatever that is, that's not Sabbath. The point of the Sabbath is to honor your need for a sane rhythm of work and rest. It honors your body's need for rest, your soul and your spirit's need for renewal. And it begins, our observance of Sabbath begins with a willingness to acknowledge the limitations of our humanness. That's what Sabbath is rooted in. So we could say that the first order of Sabbath is to see that God is infinite, but I am very finite, just like you. God can just go and give and give and do, and He's never exhausted by that. That's not us. You ever just consider the fact that God could have easily made perpetual motion machines when he created us? I mean, it's part of the mystery of creation. It's not like God said, well, I wish I could have made you more efficient, but this is the best I could do. Best version I could come up with has to sleep a third of its existence. Have you ever just considered that? That if you're a healthy, normal person, you will spend 1/3 of your whole life on earth asleep. That's a lot. 1/3. And it's not because God couldn't figure out a more efficient way of making you. I mean, God knows how to make things that don't stop. I mean, think about your heart. Your heart never stops for 80, 90, 100 years. It just beats nonstop. God knows how to make things that don't have to take a break. But it's not how he made us. He made us needing to sleep 1/3 of the time. He made us with a need for rest a lot more than 1/3 of the time. It's a part of the divine design. And there's something deeply spiritual about honoring the limits of our human existence and recognizing there are things about God, though I'm made in the image of God, there are things about God that are uniquely true of him that are not true of me. There's a reason why God made me this way, where I'm going to need downtime. What you discover is when we begin to enter into these times, when we enter into, as a starting point, a day every week where we are more gracious and gentle with ourselves. Some of us need to just let that thought sink in. Being more gracious and gentle with ourselves. Some have come up in environments that were so guilt-driven and so work-driven that we don't know how to be gracious and gentle with ourselves. We feel guilty if we're not doing more. Like there's some little voice in the back of our minds, a father or mother or some figure back there in the past that's going, what are you doing just sitting there? What are you doing taking a rest? You should be busy. You should be doing more. When we can learn to be gracious and gentle with ourselves a day of the week and not feel guilty about doing the things that really bring life to us, you want to know what the surprise is that comes with that? The rest of the week, we discover that we're more gracious and gentle with the people around us when we learn to be more gracious and gentle with ourselves. That's a good place to land. But I'll tell you who will be glad that you did? All the people that have to live with you. It's part of what Sabbath does to us. And we'll discover that something healthier and more authentic begins to emerge out of that. All these different slices of who we are for different people begin to integrate into one person who figures out who they are and what they enjoy in life. Now again, I know there is the ideal and then there is reality. And reality for some people is that right now, some of us are still going. That's great. It's great if you need that. That is not a priority for me. I'm not walking out of here and changing how I do my week. I've just got too many people counting on me. I've got too much responsibility. Sabbath sounds great. Maybe in retirement I'll try that. But there are some people, that's how you're thinking right now. And if it is, I just want to offer you this as a thought to ponder. It's a warning of sorts. It comes from Wayne Muller in his book, Sabbath, when he says, if we do not allow for a rhythm of rest in our overly busy lives, illness becomes our Sabbath. Our pneumonia, our cancer, our heart attack, our accidents create Sabbath for us. Friends, that's a fact. Now don't misunderstand that. Not because God's going, I told you, if you want to learn it one way, I'll teach it to you another. No. This is not God coming in going, you didn't take Sabbath, so I'm going to give you a heart attack. I'm going to give you a nervous breakdown. No, that is not how God relates to his children. But the truth is, God has built us with limitations. and when we don't learn to operate within those limitations. That's why God said, this is a priority. You've got to understand this. I'm making it a command. You have to observe these times of rest. You've got to have these periods every week and every year where you enter into rest. And if you don't, you're going to suffer. There's no way around it. And that's what Muller's saying in his book. You're going to take Sabbath. You're going to either take it the fun way, the good way, the life-giving way, or you're going to take it the painful way. You're going to wear your body out. You're going to stress yourself out. You're going to wind up having to take Sabbath because of that heart attack, because of those ulcers, because of all of this sickness and stuff that happens because you ran your body beyond, you ran it in the red all the time, and you just wore it out ahead of time. So let's choose to do it the fun way. Well, to practice Sabbath, you got to fall in love with it. And it's easy to fall in love with it, but to fall in love with it, you got to try it. So I want to just give you some practical guidelines for if you want to begin to really practice a biblical New Testament Christian Sabbath. What does that look like? So I want to give you 3 practical guidelines. And the first one is this. If you want to practice Sabbath, we cease from work so that we can delight in God and in His good gifts. This is the heart of Sabbath. All of our do's or things that we choose not to do on Sabbath, they're about that. I want to enjoy God and all of God's good gifts in my life, and God's best gifts in my life come in the form of people, but it's not just people. He's put other things in my heart that I very much enjoy. So Sabbath isn't about doing a list of things or not doing a list of things so that God can be happy with me. Can we just completely set that idea aside? That is not what Sabbath is. That's legalism. Sabbath was never supposed to be a list of do's and don'ts. I'm going to choose to do certain things and to not do certain things so that I can enjoy God and the very best things in my life. The second practical guideline is this, is that it's vital that we establish a regular rhythm for Sabbaths. Human bodies and souls love and respond to rhythms, don't we? We enjoy things in patterns. We're accustomed to the pattern of light and dark, work and rest, 3 meals a day. Some of us are really accustomed to that. We're accustomed to the pattern of 4 seasons in the year, and we respond to those things. And so having a regular rhythm is a part of the restfulness of Sabbath so that you don't have to reinvent it. What I'm saying is, don't expect it to work well if you say, well, this week, I'm going to see if I can carve out a little bit of time on Thursday, and we'll call that Sabbath. And then the next week, we'll see if we can figure out a day to get a little bit of rest in. If you have to invent Sabbath every week, this isn't going to last. It isn't going to work. It's not going to be a restful, life-giving thing. The pattern is there's going to be a day of the week, and each week I'm not going to really have to think about, am I going to do this? No, this is the day that we experience what God has for us. The third principle is this. Sabbath is a communal discipline to be enjoyed with those that we love. Sabbath is a communal experience. So two different ways that I want you to think about that. For one, understand that there are parts of Sabbath that you're going to enjoy by yourself, just enjoying what you enjoy. But there's a part of Sabbath that's just about enjoying the people you want to be with. And I love that part. I love both pieces in that. I mean, obviously, I spend a lot of time with Jackie on our Sabbath. I love her more than anybody in the world, so I enjoy being with her. I spend a lot of time with her, but it's not just with her. We love going out with friends, going to dinner with friends, being with people that it's a life-giving relationship, that our tanks are more full when we're with them. So I would encourage you in this regard. You know instinctively the people in your life that refill your tank and the people who drain your tank. Like, you don't even have to think twice about it, do you? I mean, let yourself sort of visit some different relationships in your life and just think of it as thumbs up or thumbs down. Thumbs up is they refill my tank. Thumbs down is I'm a little bit closer to E when they leave. You know, and it's okay. We need some of both. We need some people that we pour into. We need some people that pour into us. Let Sabbath be about the thumbs up people. Let Sabbath be about experiencing community with the people that it's life-giving for you. The other 6 days of the week, you can go out with those people. And you need them. You need to pour into them. But the other side of that is Sabbath is a communal experience in that if you don't live alone, some of you live alone, and so this part won't necessarily apply to you, but for those of you who live with other people under your same roof, if you're married, if you got kids at home, as best you can, you're going to need to figure out, and it may take time to figure this out, but you're going to need to figure out how to do Sabbath together. I mean, like if you're a married couple, it's going to be very difficult to go, well, I'm going to do Sabbath on Wednesday, and you can do it on Saturday, and we'll both try and make that work. Well, that's not going to work very well. As best you can over time, come up with a plan so that together you can observe this day with your mate, with the people who are under the same roof with you. And if you're raising kids, it's going to take some real intentionality to sort of get everybody on the same page that on this day, we're going to honor the day. We're not going to chase somebody's work schedule. We're not going to chase somebody's ball schedule. We're going to enjoy each other. We're going to enjoy doing things that are life-giving for us. Okay, so when we get down to doing the Sabbath, what should I include in my Sabbaths? Well, the simplest answer to that is whatever delights and replenishes you makes the list. Man, if it fills you up, great. But 3 different categories to think about. This is simple enough to remember and to practice. The first thing is rest your body by doing whatever refreshes and invigorates you. Take a nap. Take a relaxing bike ride. Take a bubble bath. Enjoy good food, because no diets are allowed on the Sabbath. Let me say that one again. You obviously didn't hear that. No dieting allowed on the Sabbath. That's my legalistic standard. Okay, we don't get to that. Did you realize, I mean, pretty much all the studies show the same thing. If you're on a diet, it will be more effective if at least one day out of every 7 you refrain from any calorie restriction. It revs your metabolism back up to have a day where you actually feed it well. So make that your Sabbath day. Eat well on the Sabbath. No, see, again, that's an oppressive thought to feel like, I get to have 12 calories for lunch today. I get to lick an apple and think about a grape for lunch today because I'm on a diet. That's not Sabbath. Sit in the sun, listen to good music, light some candles. Make love. Whatever gives rest to your body. Hey, let me tell you this. Let me think of it this way. Suppose today I said, I've got a pill bottle at the front for everybody in the room, and I've got a year's supply of pills that you only have to take it a minimum of 1 pill a week, and if you do, here's the effects that this pill will provide for you. You will reduce the chance of you dying as a result of heart disease, a stroke, or a heart attack. These are some of the biggest killers. The number 1 killer, all of those are among the top 5 killers in America. You will reduce the likelihood of you dying of any of those 3 by 42% if you will come and take my pill once a week. How many of you would come and take that pill? Everybody would except the skeptics, and the skeptics are going, there is no pill that's that good, and you would be right. There is no medication on the market that would reduce the likelihood of those things by 42%, but guess what will? A nap. This is a medical fact. It is well researched. If you will take at least 1 nap a week, a minimum of 20 to 30 minutes every week, you will reduce by 42% the likelihood that the biggest American killers will kill you. There's no drug on the market as effective as a weekly nap. Somebody say amen. Yes. Some people just got set free. I'm going home to obey Jesus today. Yes, go with God. Sabbath is about, first of all, giving your body the rest that it needs. So some of you some of you right now are just getting fired up. It's like, I'm recommitting my life to Jesus today. I get to eat what I want to for lunch and go home and take a nap. Yes, go with God. He wants you to be rested and refilled. Second thing to include is replenish your spirit. through worship and reflection. It's part of why Sunday works well as a day to observe Sabbath. Those of us who are in vocational ministry just need to get clear. It is not. Sunday is not my Sabbath. Now, there are elements of Sabbath that I get to experience. I start the day in personal time with God. In His Word, I wake up 30 minutes before I need to do any of my other stuff in preparation for worship and all. I just have my personal time with God. Pray, read the Word, reflect, and I'm already celebrating what God's got in store for us each day, just in my time alone with God. But the day isn't complete. My time with God, I have to go from private worship into corporate worship, where we come together to celebrate the goodness of God. Man, my tank gets filled up by that. I need my spirit renewed by having the personal time with God and the time with you, with the Lord. Make this a priority. This is a key piece. Remember back from Isaiah 58, this isn't just a time just for naps. This is a time to refuel us, and a big part of refueling us is getting connected to the God who made us. So we celebrate Him and enjoy Him on the Sabbath. And then the third piece is restore your soul by doing whatever renews you and brings you joy. And so you have to pay attention to what those things are, because that's different for every one of us. What personally restores you? Now, it's probably worth saying, there are some things that are okay to do, but they aren't really probably as restorative as others. For instance, it's easy to go, I'm going to take a Sabbath this week and watch Netflix for 12 hours, and I'm going to binge on my favorite show. Well, that's not off limits, but understand that TV and technology, while they're fine, they're a little bit like candy in our diet. I like candy, but it's not a great idea to just have a diet of candy. It's fine to include it. You just don't want to live on it. And so don't just make the day of rest a day of just, well, I'm just going to stay in front of my computer, in front of the TV. Make sure that you think about the things that really are life-giving for your soul. Maybe it's reading a good book. Maybe it's getting out in nature. Whatever it is that really does fill you up personally. Playing games, taking walks, being with friends, whatever those things are. Whatever you do, do not make Sabbath weighty. Don't make it legalistic, but do be intentional about it. You're going to have to be intentional to make this happen, because our culture doesn't honor Sabbath anymore, so you're going to have to really determine what's going to happen here. I love the thoughts, the last line that I put in your outline. There has to be time for the fullness of time, or life becomes meaningless. We live in a world that's so hectic, it's so rushed, the pace is, that it doesn't feel like we ever really have time, that we ever have time to finish a conversation, to enjoy just being with those that we love, to just relax. We need times to move slowly rather than hustling. We need times to really savor conversation that doesn't have to be over by a set time. We need times to just savor hugs and kisses, to receive good food and good drink with gratitude, times to rest just for the sheer pleasure of being able to rest. Times to feel what we feel without having to fight back tears. That's one of the healthy things that can happen in Sabbath, is to just think and feel and cry and celebrate. To think ahead and to be filled and recharged with the thought of hope. To just be still and be grateful for the good gifts in your life and the people that God's put around you. And I'll tell you this. What I share with you today, I share as a personal message, and if you can't tell, it comes with a sense of joy, because I live this reality. I live it every week of my life. I haven't always, but I live it faithfully now. I don't say that I get this perfectly, but I want to tell you, it gives me a center to operate from that keeps me recharged. Jackie and I live this reality together, and I'll share this just to try and put sort of a picture on living this out in a world where everything doesn't necessarily fit exactly the way that you would draw it up. Because I'm a pastor, my work week is Sunday to Thursday. While there are elements of Sabbath that work for me, I can't just say Sunday is my Sabbath. It wouldn't work. I can't wake up on Sunday morning and go, everything that's ahead for me today is just life-giving and refreshing. No, there's some of that, but it's a work day for me. So every Friday is Sabbath for us, and we guard it carefully. I'll tell you what a joy Friday is. This is what Friday looks like at the Price House. First of all, we sleep late every Friday, and it's heavenly. Like, the last thing on Thursday night is for us to go, alarms off, alarms off. We're not going to wake up to any sound designed to wake us up. We're going to wake up when we both are ready to wake up, which means that we honor each other. If one of us wakes up a little bit earlier, we stay quiet and try and let the other one just wake up when they naturally would wake up. And you know what the first order of business is after running to the bathroom? Is to just snuggle. To just get some skin on skin time. And whether that turns into passion, and often it will on a Friday, but whether it does or not, to just start the day with two things that we always can count on. We are going to start the day physically rested and with our hearts synced up. We don't leave the bedroom without having just had some time where we just hold each other and talk. And part of what we talk about is what we're going to do in the course of the day, and it's never a checklist of what we've got to do. Like, let me tell you a couple of the things that pretty much every Friday morning we'll talk about in bed before we go and face the day is, this is my party. Where do you want to eat today? Because we're either going to go out to brunch or lunch or a good dinner. Now, Jackie likes to cook, so there's probably going to be a meal that she cooks because that's actually a life-giving thing for her. So, like, she'll usually want to either cook breakfast or she'll cook us Green Chef for dinner or whatever. We'll eat something that gets cooked, but we're going to go out for some meal, so I'm looking forward to that. We're planning that. And the other thing is, have you looked on your phone for any good estate sales? We've both got the estate sale app. We love to go to estate sales. We don't spend a lot of money at them, but we love going in other people's houses and looking at their stuff. I may realize one day that's some twisted thing in me, but I like that. And so we'll lay in bed, we'll look, and let's go to this one, and we'll go, get up and get dressed and go have something good to eat. Go check out somebody else's stuff. Wonder why they bought all this stuff, and then we'll buy some of their stuff and take it home. We may get together with friends. Oftentimes, we'll go home after we eat, take a nap, feel great about doing it. Whatever we do, it's the things that delight us. This afternoon, we'll go home and start a new book. It's one of the things that's life-giving for us. Maybe it doesn't work for you. We enjoy reading the same kinds of books, usually a good mystery. If somebody didn't die in the first 3 chapters, we probably don't like it. If somebody didn't get killed. But that's just us. We like a good murder mystery, so this afternoon, we will most likely start a new book, and we'll just take turns reading chapters to each other. That's life-giving for us. If it wasn't 95 degrees, we'd probably go for a slow walk. We'll go ride our golf cart, most likely, because it is hot as all get out there. But the point is, it's a different pace. It's enjoying each other. We'll oftentimes play a card game with each other or a board game with each other. And some of you are like, y'all are the biggest nerds in the world. Don't care. It's life-giving for us. You figure out what refills your tank. But set aside the time every week for it. And if you really want to live by Sabbath, set aside some Sabbath blocks in the course of the year. I've got them blocked off on my calendar. I've got multiple bigger blocks lined up in the course of the next 12 months. And the thing is, when you know Sabbath is coming, you live with greater joy and strength today. I can make it through today because I know what's coming out there. And here's the beautiful thing about it. It's God's design. It's God's desire, because God didn't make you because he's a taskmaster who needs to get some more work done, so get busy. He's a father who loves his kids. And it is his great joy and delight to see us enjoying life, enjoying him, enjoying relationships with the people that he's put around us. And so he tells us, be careful. Be careful to make sure that you enter into His rest and that you experience Sabbath so that you can experience the John 10:10 reality where Jesus said, I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. This is Jesus' invitation to us. Make room for life, life to the full. Would you join me as we pray? Father, we just want to thank you that this is your heart. Your heart is for your people, that you want us to enjoy life. I pray for some today whose hearts are heavy, whose hearts are stressed, for some who are tired physically or emotionally. Lord, we want to enter into your rest today. Lord, there are some of us who are just so exhausted from a voice in the back of our heads that is driving us. We have lived our lives driven to do more. And I pray that you'd just do a fresh work in us of silencing those voices, that they could just be drowned out by hearing the voice of a loving Father in heaven saying, I love you for who you are, not for what you do. Enter into my rest. Could you just hear Jesus speaking those words over you today? Calling you by name and saying, I love you for who you are, not because of what you do. Enter into my rest. Enter into my joy. Father, we want to know you better. We want to make room for that. We want to learn to delight in you and enjoy all the good things and people that you put in our lives. Would you help us to do that? We open our hearts to receive more of you today, and we celebrate your goodness in our lives. And we pray this, Jesus, in your name. Amen. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I surely hope that what you heard was relevant and helpful, and above everything, I hope that what you experienced today really helped your heart to connect with the heart of God. Now, if what you heard for you stirred up any questions or maybe led you toward some type of spiritual decision, maybe you want to talk with someone about something that's on your mind, I would love to hear from you. And so I would encourage you, reach out by email. At the bottom of the screen, you see my email address. It's mark@myfreedomchurch.net. That's not going to go to a secretary or an assistant. That'll come directly to me. I'd love to hear from you and talk with you about anything that's on your mind. And if in the future you're in our area, we would love for you to come and worship with us at Freedom Church. But until then, we invite you to access all of the sermon material that you find online. Again, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. Hope that you have a great day.